treated. He's been treated throughout history by the British and the French press, when really the blame for the war lies at everybody else's feet but his. In fact, we can see that all his relatives and the newspapers at the time all thought, as well as the diplomatic corps, that Wilhelm was doing whatever he could to avoid war. So I think we can safely assume that the view of Wilhelm that's been perpetrated by the British establishment and the French establishment through to the modern day is just biased to, in fact, make their warmongering seem far more infallible.
Right, and anyone want to respond to that?
I have to say, I'm not sure what you mean when you say that he did everything possible to avoid the war. I mean, fundamentally, he declared war on Britain and France quite unnecessarily, simply because he believed there was some sort of conspiracy to align he thought the tripartite alliance was going to try and destroy Germany. I mean, this was just merely his own kind of fear and insecurity. There was no need to declare war.
Much like Putin's Russia, can you argue?
Yeah, in a very similar way, a preemptive attack to stop a perceived threat. Yeah.
Yes, Ibrahim?
I'd just like to make a correction. Germany did not declare war on Britain in World War One. When Germany invaded Belgium, Britain declares war on Germany. Germany declares war on France in World War One. But it's unfair to blame all of this on Kaiser Wilhelm. You know, he is a product of the country he's living in, the time he's living in, the massive wave of nationalism perpetrated by people like Bismarck beforehand sort of forces his hand there. And he's not, although he is the most powerful person in the country, he's the king, and it's only a semi-constitutional sort of monarchy, there is massive pressure, even from more left-wing parties, for war to take, Germany's place in the sun. So I do agree with Isaac that they had sort of scapegoated him to make him the only person who was to blame for the war, and there was a billion other factions.
I mean, invading Britain's two closest allies simultaneously seems to me to be the closest thing to a declaration of war. But yeah, I see what you mean. He didn't. Yeah.
Well, so I suppose one could argue that he did declare war on the tripartite alliance by invading France.
He knowingly dragged Britain into the war.
Yeah, that's sort of how alliances work.
Yeah.
Leo?
And also in the statement that he did all he could to avoid the war. With his erratic Weltpolitik attitude and the policies that he would follow, he would oversee a large amount of tension in the world skyrocketing up. And also, it's very clear he has very evident failings as a leader. Firstly, he dismissed Otto von Bismarck. He let the reassurance treaty with Russia lapse, leading to the Russians and French creating a very strong alliance. Furthermore, with his Weltpolitik, he alienated Britain to a massive degree with the 1898 and 1900 naval laws, and as well, with Weltpolitik, he fails to break the Entente in the first Moroccan crisis, and by the second Morocco crisis, his aggressive moves only seem to strengthen the Entente. And through these, we can clearly see Wilhelm is not an effective, nor even a good leader through these clear political blunders and clear political failings.
But Leo, during the time that Wilhelm was in command of Germany and ruling over it, trade with other non-European nations, so the United States had increased massively, so had Germany's production of steel. The German Navy was rivaling the British one at sea. So when you keep saying that he's such a terrible leader, surely you have to admit that many of the things he did strengthened Germany as a world power and reduced their reliance on British steel or French colonies for their resources.
But I'd very simply ask, with all these successes in the economy, how much of this can realistically be attributed to Wilhelm? And secondly, with the German Navy being able to rival the British one, to a certain extent you would be correct in this, but this came at the incredible political cost of alienating the British, squandering any hope of an Anglo-Prussian alliance, and furthermore, even in naval action against the British, it was clear that the Home Sea Fleet was still able to outclass and still very much go toe-to-toe with the German Navy and win, meaning that at Jutland and other engagements. As it can be seen, the jailer was assaulted, but ultimately Germany still remained in jail, meaning this naval build-up was ultimately for null if the results can't materialise.
Well, I think it says a lot about Wilhelm's personality, to be honest, the idea of this naval expansion, because he was a man who we could certainly view as incredibly arrogant and incredibly egoistic, because of things like his dismissal of Wilhelm. This was a personal dispute. It wasn't really a matter of policy, although he did try and frame it. He tried to frame it as a matter of policy, his disagreement with Bismarck. But fundamentally, he couldn't handle the competing egos of Bismarck and himself. And of course, he looked out for number one. I can think that there's a good parallel to be drawn with the naval expansion, in that he didn't want this competing egos of the other royal families. we can certainly argue that the ninefold increase in steel production is...
rise in wages.
Yeah, well, the ninefold increase in steel production is certainly militaristic, but we must accept the balance of the raise in wages. I'll give you that.
What about the statistics after from 1913 to 1919 or 1918?
The war that he shouldn't have been blamed for.
The war that he was very much still an aggravating part.
As with every other European leader at the time. You
right.
can't place more blame
So
on him than anybody else.
the spate of interruptions of each other towards the end simply tells all of what a hotly contested debate this has been. And next fortnight we shall be discussing the life and times of Muhammad Ali Jinnah and his sort of founding of Pakistan, the father of Pakistan. And we will obviously then subsequently debate his merits. But thank you very much for listening, and goodbye.